Welcome back. This video is not about the character art mastery before you with an uncanny likeness of Sora from Kingdom Hearts, which you could theoretically recreate following my 120-hour Laserdisc collection. No, this video is about
hair simulation.
So we got a pretty standard setup if you've followed along with any of my other hair videos with the modifier stack. You got trim, clump, interpolate. But this time I went through and I actually added a skeleton and animation to it. And Blender has a really hard time following along with the hair in any of the shaded modes. And you're going to see something kind of strange here. It kind of looks like the hair is flickering or moving. And that's just simply because we have the interpolate node on. And it's doing its job. It's interpolating the hair in 3D space. So every time the points of the hair move, it is trying to reassess where those interpolated hairs go. For hair simulation, we can't have that. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply the modifiers. So one thing to note is both the mesh and the hair have modifiers applied, and that will change the look of the hair once it's applied. But for now, let's select the hair and go to convert and convert it to a particle system and see what we get. And we get just like we would if we didn't have the modifiers, just the base curves. Alright, so let's delete that particle system to get rid of the hair, and then let's go look at our modifiers again. On the mesh, if you toggle them on and off, you can see how they affect the hair. And you can see that it's mainly the subdivision and the armature that affect it. I can't do much about the armature, but I can apply the subdivision. Now when we take a look at the modifier stack on the hair to see how it affects things, you'll see the surface deform does change it a little bit. But we want to go in and apply top to bottom on the modifiers. Very important before converting. So now when we go ahead and convert to particle system, you'll see that there's really not much of a change in the hair. It kept most of the shape. So when you apply the surface deform modifier on the geometry node hair side of things, it will remove the animation from that. But when you convert it to a particle system, luckily you'll see the animation maintains. So to actually simulate the hair, we care about this little tick box right here, hair dynamics. We're not going to concern ourselves with all of these drop downs right now. Just hit spacebar to play the animation and let it cache, and let's see what we get. Immediately the hair begins to fall, the clumps lose all their shape, and it kind of pushes through the head. It's unrecognizable. And as it turns, it just looks like a mess. Let's go ahead and reset this to 0 and look at some settings. Just to test, I added the collection to the collision collection just to see if maybe it would stop some of the penetration, but it didn't really seem to help, which it's alright, I'll figure it out eventually. That wasn't my super main concern. What does really help is setting the pen goal strength to 1. And as you simulate that, you'll see that it maintains some of those clumps still. And even some of the groupings as it moves. It still feels a little soft for my liking. So let's take a look under the structure setting, and we'll see that for the vertex mass, it's set to 0.3, which I believe means every vertex is set to 300 grams, which seems heavy. So set that to 0.1, and then the stiffness I'm moving up to 0.6. Now let's take a look at that. You can see the groupings are holding together really well. Maybe too well, depending on what you're looking for, but I like the direction it's heading in. When I play it again after it's cached, it feels kind of springy. So there's a few more things I'm going to tweak. I'm going to turn the pin strength up to 2 and move the vertex mass up to 0.2 also. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. It looks a little more natural. Sadly, the settings for the particle system simulation is a little bit limited. I suppose you could have different groupings converted to particle settings that have different simulation settings also. Now let's take a look at the shading for the particle system hair, because it's quite a bit different than what we had from the curves. Toggle that on and off, totally different. And that's because the particle system automatically applies the material from the mesh to the hair. So if you scroll down and see render here, the material is the same as on the mesh. So if we go over here and grab the hair, look at its materials, let's change the name real quick so it's more identifiable. Then back over to the mesh, add a new material and add that material hair. Then back over to the particle settings. You can now add that material for the hair. So at least the shading is proper, but the taper and curve is totally different. For the particle system, it's under the hair shape drop down right here. Let's try changing the strand shape and see what happens. We have the curve system visible. So now when we toggle that, we can see it shrinks the entire hair system. It's kind of a neat effect, but not what we're going for. And you can it's only visible in the render view, unfortunately. So it looks like we want the strand shape to -1. It's looking a little thin in comparison to what I had, so we're going to bump up the diameter to 0.02, and then we'll make a comparison, and that looks almost spot on. That about wraps it up for basic bare bones simulation in Blender. It's not a very complex system. You can get decent results out of it, but sadly there's nothing on the geometry node side yet for simulation. If you guys see anything, let me know. Thanks for all the support and feedback. Now here's the renders.